Mont Blanc and Monte Bianco, both meaning White Mountain, is the highest mountain in the Alps and the highest in Europe after the Caucasus peaks. It rises 4,808.73 meters above sea level and is ranked 11th in the world in topographic prominence. The mountain lies in a range called the Graian Alps, between the regions of Aosta Valley, Italy, and Savoie and Haute-Savoie, France. The location of the summit is on the watershed line between the valleys of Ferret and Veny in Italy and the valleys of Montjoie and Arve in France. The Mont Blanc Massif is popular for mountaineering, hiking, skiing, and snowboarding. The three towns and their communes which surround Mont Blanc are Montjoie in Aosta Valley, Italy, and Saint-Gervais-les-Bains and Chamonix in Haute-Savoie, France. The latter town was the site of the first Winter Olympics. A cable car ascends and crosses the mountain range from Montjoie to Chamonix, through the Col du Graian, constructed beginning in 1957 and completed in 1965. The 11.6 kilometers Mont Blanc Tunnel runs beneath the mountain between these two countries and is one of the major transalpine transport routes. History. The first recorded ascent of Mont Blanc was on 8 August 1786 by Jacques Barmat and the Dr. Michel Paccard. This climb, initiated by Horace Benedict de Saussure, who gave a reward for the successful ascent, traditionally marks the start of modern mountaineering. The first woman to reach the summit was Marie Paradis in 1808, and the first dog without human technical help was Chingle from Grindelwald. Nowadays, the summit is ascended by an average of 20,000 mountaineer tourists each year. It could be considered an easy, yet arduous, ascent for someone who is well-trained and acclimatized to the altitude. From L'Aiguille du Midi, Mont Blanc seems quite close, being 1,000 meters higher. But while the peak seems deceptively close, La Voie-des-Trois Monts route requires much ascent over two other 4,000 meters mountains, Mont Blanc du Taquil and Mont Mordet, before the final section of the climb is reached and the last 1,000 meters push to the summit is undertaken. Each year climbing deaths occur on Mont Blanc, and on the busiest weekends, normally around August, the local rescue service performs an average of 12 missions, mostly directed to aid people in trouble on one of the normal routes of the mountain. Some routes require knowledge of high-altitude mountaineering, a guide, and all require proper equipment. All routes so long and arduous, involving delicate passages and the hazard of rockfall or avalanche. Also, at least one night at a high mountain refuge is required to help acclimatize to the altitude, lest could lead to altitude sickness and possible death. Ownership of the summit. Since the French Revolution, the issue of the ownership of the summit has been debated. From 1416 to 1792, the entire mountain was within the Duchy of Savoy. In 1723, the Duke of Savoy, Victor Amadeus II, acquired the Kingdom of Sardinia. The resulting state of Sardinia was to become preeminent in the Italian unification. In September 1792, the French Revolutionary Army of the Alps under Pierre de Montesquieu Fezensac seized Savoy without much resistance and created a department of the Mont Blanc. In a treaty of 15 May 1796, Victor Amadeus III of Sardinia was forced to cede Savoy and Nice to France. In Article 4 of this treaty it says, "The border between the Sardinian Kingdom and the departments of the French Republic will be established on a line determined by the most advanced points on the Piedmont side of the summits, peaks of mountains and other locations subsequently mentioned, as well as the intermediary peaks, knowing, starting from the point where the borders of Forceny, the Duchy of Aosta and the Valais Valley, to the extremity of the glaciers and Monts. First the peaks or plateaus of the Alps, to the rising edge of the Colonel Mare. This act further states that the border should be visible from the town of Chamonix and Courmayeur. However, neither the peak of the Mont Blanc is visible from Courmayeur nor the peak of the Mont Blanc de Courmayeur is visible from Chamonix, because part of the mountains lower down obscure them. After the Napoleonic Wars, the Congress of Vienna restored the King of Sardinia in Savoy, Nice and Piedmont, his traditional territories, overruling the 1796 Treaty of Paris. 45 years later, after the Second Italian War of Independence, it was replaced by a new legal act. This act was signed in Turin on 24 March 1860 by Napoleon III and Victor Emmanuel II of Savoy, and deals with the annexation of Savoy. A demarcation agreement, signed on 7 March 1861, defines the new border. With the formation of Italy, for the first time Mont Blanc is located on the border of France and Italy. The 1860 Act and attached maps are still legally valid for both the French and Italian governments. One of the prints from the 1823 Sard Atlas positions the border exactly on the summit edge of the mountain high. The Convention of 7 March 1861 recognizes this through an attached map taking into consideration the limits of the massif, and drawing the border on the ice cap of Mont Blanc, making it both French and Italian. Watershed analysis of modern topographic mapping not only places the main summit on the border, but also suggests that the border should follow a line northwards from the main summit towards Montjoie, leaving the southeast ridge to Mont Blanc de Courmayeur wholly within Italy. Although the Franco-Italian border was redefined in both 1947 and 1963, the commission made up of both Italians and French ignored the Mont Blanc issue. In the early 21st century, administration of the mountain is shared between the Italian town of Courmayeur and the French town of Saint-Gervais-les-Bains, although the larger part of the mountain lies within the commune of the latter. The first professional scientific investigations on the summit were conducted by the botanist-meteorologist Joseph Vallo at the end of the 19th century. He wanted to stay near the top of the summit, so he built his own permanent cabin, Janssen Observatory. In 1890, Pierre Janssen, an astronomer and a director of the Meudon Astrophysical Observatory, considered the construction of an observatory at the summit of Mont Blanc. Gustave Eiffel agreed to take on the project, provided he could build on a rock foundation, if found at a depth of less than 12 meters below the ice. In 1891, the Swiss Savoie Imfeld dug two 23 meters long horizontal tunnels 12 meters below the ice summit, but found nothing solid. Consequently, the Eiffel project was abandoned. Despite this, the observatory was built in 1893. During the cold wave of January 1893, a temperature of -43 degrees Celsius was recorded on Mont Blanc, being the lowest ever recorded there. Levers attached to the ice supported the observatory. This worked to some extent until 1906, when the building started leaning heavily. The movement of the levers corrected the lean slightly, but 3 years later, a crevasse started opening under the observatory. It was abandoned. Eventually the building fell, and only the tower could be saved in extremis. Air crashes. The mountain was the scene of two fatal air crashes, Air India Flight 245 in 1950 and Air India Flight 101 in 1966. Both planes were approaching Geneva Airport and the pilots miscalculated the descent. 48 and 117 people, respectively, died. The latter passengers included top nuclear scientist Homi J. Bhabha, known as the father of India's nuclear program. tunnel. In 1946, a drilling project was initiated to carve a tunnel through the mountain. The Mont Blanc tunnel would connect Chamonix, France and Montjoie, Italy, and become one of the major transalpine transport routes between the two countries. In 1965, the tunnel opened to vehicle traffic with a length of 11,611 meters. 1999 disaster. In 1999, a transport truck caught fire in the tunnel beneath the mountain. In total, 39 people were killed when the fire raged out of control. The tunnel was renovated in the aftermath to increase driver safety, reopening after 3 years. Geology. Elevation. The summit of Mont Blanc is a thick, perennial ice and snow dome whose thickness varies. No exact and permanent summit elevation can therefore be determined, though accurate measurements have been made on specific dates. For a long time its official elevation was 4,807 meters. In 2002, the IGN and expert surveyors, with the aid of GPS technology, measured it to be 4,807.40 meters. After the 2003 heatwave in Europe, a team of scientists remeasured the height on 6 and 7 September. The team was made up of the glaciologist Luc Moreau, 2 surveyors from the GPS company, 3 people from the IGN, 7 expert surveyors, 4 mountain guides from Chamonix and Saint-Gervais, and 4 students from various institutes in France. This team noted that the elevation was 4,808.45 meters, and the peak was 75 centimeters away from where it had been in 2002. After these results were published, more than 500 points were measured to assess the effects of climate change and the fluctuations in the height of the mountain at different points. Since then, the elevation of the mountain has been measured every 2 years. The interpretation that the heatwave had caused this fluctuation is disputed because the heatwave is known not to have significantly affected the glaciers above 4,000 meters. The height and position of the summit could have been moved by general glacial forces. At this elevation, the temperatures rarely rise above 0 degrees Celsius. During the summer of 2003, the temperature rose to 2 degrees Celsius, and even 3 degrees Celsius, but this would not have been enough for the ice to melt that amount. The summit was measured again in 2005, and the results were published on the 16th of December 2005. The height was found to be 4,808.75 meters, 30 centimeters more than the previous recorded height. The rock summit was found to be at 4,792 meters, some 40 meters west of the ice-covered summit. In 2007, the summit was measured at 4,807.9 meters, and in 2009 at 4,807.45 meters. In 2013, the summit was measured at 4,810.02 meters, and in 2015 at 4,808.73 meters. For the summit of Mont Blanc on a clear day, the Jura, the Vosges, the Black Forest and the Massif Central mountain ranges can be seen, as well as the principal summits of the Alps. Climbing routes. The Mont Blanc Massif averages nearly 100 fatalities a year. A published estimate suggests there have been 6,000–8,000 alpinist fatalities in total, more than on any other mountain. Several classic climbing routes lead to the summit of Mont Blanc. The most popular route is the Voie des Cristalliers, also known as the Voie Royale. Starting from Saint-Gervais-les-Bains, the tramway du Mont Blanc is taken to get to the Fr. Gare du Nid d'Aigle. The ascent begins in the direction of the refuge de Terre-Rousse and through the Gauta corridor, considered dangerous because of frequent rock falls, leading to the Gauta cabin for night shelter. The next day the route leads to the Dôme du Gauta, past the emergency Valo cabin and l'Arrêt des Bosses. La Voie des Three Monts is also known as La Traversée. Starting from Chamonix, the téléphérique de l'Aiguille du Midi is taken towards the Col du Midi. The Cosmix cabin is used to spend the night. The next day the ascent continues over Mont Blanc, du Taquil and Mont Mordet. The historic itinerary through the Grand Mulets, which is most frequently traversed in winter by ski, or in summer to descend to Chamonix. The normal Italian itinerary is also known as La Route des Aiguilles Grises. After crossing the Miage Glacier, climbers spend the night at the Ganella Refuge. The next day one proceeds through the Col des Aiguilles Grises and the Dôme du Gauta, concluding at l'Arrêt des Bosses. The Miage Bionasse Mont Blanc crossing is usually done in 3 days, and has been described as a truly magical expedition of ice and snow reach at great altitude. The route begins from Contamines Montjoie, with the night spent in the conscript's cabin. The following day, the Dômes de Miages is crossed and the night spent at the Jurier cabin. The third day proceeds over l'Aiguille de Bionasse and the Dôme du Gauta, finally reaching the summit of Mont Blanc via the Bosses Ridge. Impacts of climate change. Recent temperature rises and heatwaves, such as that of summer 2015, have had significant impacts on many climbing routes across the Alps, including those on Mont Blanc. For example, in 2015, the Grand Mulets route, previously popular in the 20th century, was blocked by virtually impenetrable crevasse fields, and the Gauta hut was closed by municipal decree for some days because of very high stonefall danger, with some stranded climbers evacuated by helicopter. Exploits and incidents. 1786, the first ascent by Michel Gabriel Paccard and Jacques Barmat, see Exploration of the High Alps. 1787, the fourth ascent by Englishman Marc Beaufoy, with at least 6 guides and a servant. July 1808, the first ascent by a woman, Maria Paradis, with Barmat as her guide. July 1838, the second ascent by a woman, Henriette d'Angeville. 1886, future U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt had led an expedition to the peak. 1890, Giovanni Bonin, Luigi Grasselli and Fr. Achille Ratti discovered the normal Italian route on descent. 1960, the airplane pilot Henry Giraud landed on the summit, which is only 30 meters long. 1990, the Swiss Pierre-André Gobert, leaving from Chamonix, completed the ascent and descent in 5 hours, 10 minutes and 14 seconds. The 30th of May 2003, Stéphane Brosset and Pierre Guignaud tried to beat the record by ski walking. They went up in 4 hours and 7 minutes, and came back down in 1 hour and 8 minutes. In total they did the ascent and descent in 5 hours and 15 minutes. The 13th of August 2003, 7 French paraglider pilots landed on the summit. They reached a peak altitude of 5,200 meters, thanks to the hot weather conditions, which provided strong hot air currents. 5 had left from Plan Praz, 1 from Rochebrune at Megève, and the last one from Samans. The 8th of June 2007, Danish artist Marco Everesti draped the peak of Mont Blanc with red fabric, along with a 20-foot pole with a flag reading peaks.It. He had been arrested and detained earlier on the 6th of June for attempting to paint a pass leading up to the summit red. His aim was to raise awareness of environmental degradation. The 13th of September 2007, a group of 20 people set up a hot tub at the summit. The 19th of August 2012, 50 paraglider pilots landed on the summit, beating the previous record of 7 top landing pilots, set in 2003. This included the second ever tandem landing on the summit. The 11th of July 2013, Kilian Jornet beat the fastest overall time for ascent and descent with 4 hours 57 minutes and 40 seconds. Protection. The Mont Blanc Massif is being put forward as a potential World Heritage Site because of its uniqueness and its cultural importance. Considered the birthplace and symbol of modern mountaineering, it would require the 3 governments of Italy, France and Switzerland to make a request to UNESCO for it to be listed. Mont Blanc is one of the most visited tourist destinations in the world, and for this reason, some view it as threatened. Pro-Mont Blanc published in 2002 the book Le Versant Noir du Mont Blanc, which exposes current and future problems in conserving the site. In 2007, Europe's 2 highest toilets were taken by helicopter to the top of Mont Blanc. They are also serviced by helicopter. They will serve 30,000 skiers and hikers annually, helping to alleviate the discharge of urine and feces that spreads down the mountain face with the spring thaw and turns it into Mont Marron. Global warming has begun to melt glaciers and cause avalanches on Mont Blanc, creating more dangerous climbing conditions. Gallery. The highest resolution panorama of the Mont Blanc ever made, in 2 white.